I am just a bad person, am I? Thanks, everybody, for hanging in there and joining us here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. My sincerest apologies. My intent was to do a live stream following the BYU-UCF game. What a scintillating down-to-the-wire contest that was, and then to come on here at approximately 10:30 to talk about the game if it was worth talking about, but more importantly, to talk to all of you. So I apologize. We are a mere hour and 15 minutes late. So thank you so much for hanging in there, and hopefully we'll get a decent crowd in tonight. But I will certainly honor all the comments that come into the live chat. And you can reach me at 860-325-3687. So before I post the phone number for the call-in line, check out the crawl below. Shop Amazon. Use the link in the description section that we provide. So again, Christmas shopping is just about done. I actually, well, if you would see to my left over here, you would see all sorts of Christmas presents and wrapping paper and so forth. So I understand that Christmas shopping is basically complete online, but there's going to be returns. There's going to be all sorts of activity after Christmas for you, you diligent shoppers and you spendthrift shoppers. So shop Amazon. Bottom line, use the description that the link that we provide in the description section below. All right. Want to talk about Brian Harsin, new Auburn coach. Want to talk about tonight's game very little. BYU dominated UCF. I did not see a final score in the game, 49-21, something in that range. No, it was 49-17 in the fourth quarter. So it was a demolition. A game I anticipated as being one of the better bowl games of the bowl season. We also have South Carolina, a 2-8 South Carolina team opting out of the Gasparilla Bowl with UAB. South Carolina with COVID issues. We saw Tennessee opt out earlier, so that's two SEC teams down. Is that it? Just the two? Just the two right now. Tennessee replaced by Army. That was good to see. If you saw Army coach Jeff Monken make a plea online to get an opponent for a bowl game because his team not able to play an opponent in a bowl game at 9-2, and he sincerely wanted to play a bowl game, and his team did. They are the opposite of the opt-outs. Army wanting to play in a bowl game. So I am so glad to see Army with an opponent taking on West Virginia in the Liberty Bowl. All right, let's take it from the top. Here we go. Got David in here. I don't look anything like Florida. Florida, Oklahoma has replaced Texas A&M and North Carolina as my favorite bowl game. It was going to be Texas A&M and North Carolina, but with no Chaz Surratt, De'Ami Brown, and Michael Carter, the three best players on the North Carolina football team other than Sam Howell. That's a completely different game now. Aesthetics, Heart Style, we always appreciate your support, sir. Group of Five needs their own national championship. I think we've gotten to the point now that even in this pandemic year, if Cincinnati cannot make their way into a national playoff, then and go to Carolina when we've got a team with 6 games playing, it's just never going to happen. There is going to have to be a glut of 2-loss. I don't even know that in a regular season, because if there is a glut of 2-loss teams that win conference championships, they're 11-2. The best that a group of 5 team can do is, of course, 13-0. I don't even think that's going to get a group of 5 team into the college football playoff above an 11-2 conference champion. And we have yet to see an 11-2, a 2-loss team, especially a conference champion, make it into the playoff, let alone a bunch of them that a group of 5 team would be vaulting into that scenario. George is in need of a soulmate for a few days. maybe through the holidays, through the New Year's. George? I wish I was 4 whole minutes late. How about 75? It's just me, Tim, 79. Merry Christmas, everyone. Yes, absolutely. Merry Christmas. It's just me, Tim, 79. I love Jesus. I do as well. Alabama's like so boring. We know we're going to win. We're not even getting extra excited. That's a good comment there from George. George, of course, throws out not just more comments than anyone, but he hits on quite a few. And yeah, Alabama, Nick Saban just can't even get excited about this anymore, can he?
The call will start at the beep.
Here we go. We're finally getting started here, close to midnight. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark.
Hey, George.
Hey, who won that game?
BYU won huge.
I turned it off in the fourth quarter.
Oh, yeah. They were up,
Yeah.
I know it was 49-17. I don't know what the final was. I thought that was going to be a good game.
I was going to, if I would have bet money, I would have put on UCF. So, yeah, I thought so too.
Yeah, I picked BYU to win, but not by a lot.
Yeah. I'm not even going to get into the underwear thing.
You guys are going to play the best bowl game, I think. That's the best bowl matchup. You guys and Oklahoma squaring off.
That's what I told people. They're making jokes with me, and I said, I'm just going to enjoy the game. I don't care. Win or lose, I'm going to enjoy that game. Florida versus Oklahoma.
Yeah. That'll be a good one. Should be a good one.
It's Spencer Rattler versus Kyle Trask.
That's it. I think you've got an advantage there.
Fuck. Do you think there's even a chance Kyle Trask will come back again? He might fall to the second round. Maybe they would advise him just come back for one more year.
I don't know. Even if I'm just a second-round pick in the NFL draft, am I going to come back for another season? I don't know what the contract money difference is on that.
It would depend on how much money his parents have coming in from new jobs he just got. Like, we want to hire you as the Western Hemisphere director for FedEx, and as long as your son stays in college.
Yeah, I just think that he's gone. I don't know though. I don't know if there's been any talk about that. But again, I'm not an NFL draft salary cap expert to know the difference between getting selected someplace in the top 15 versus the top 40 or 50. I don't know what kind of money difference we're talking about that he could make in 1 year. Don't know.
Yeah. I'm afraid he's going to leave. However, ever since the first day we got Emory Jones, and I know Dan Mullen's screwing up bad, and I don't even know if he'll be there next year. But, yeah, Emory Jones is like the next Tim Tebow. Do you notice how they never let Emory Jones throw the ball? No one's seen Emory Jones throw the ball except like 10 times in his whole college career. Notice that?
Yeah, they've got about 3 throws for him. They run about 3 patterns, and most of them are like little slants. He just steps back he takes about 3 steps back and just goes doop right over the middle.
There's a channel on YouTube called Glow Stick. He's just an 18-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Glow Stick. And he made a video once, like 3 years ago, called Kyle Trask. Emory Jones, the next Tim Tebow. And when you watch this guy's high school tapes, it's nothing but 60-yard passes. Just pinpoint, dime. So I just wonder, are they hiding him or what? What are they doing?
I think that they don't trust him to make decisions.
maybe that's what it is, like Justin Fields. I see the problem. Hey, I have picked Ohio State to beat Clemson into the dirt. So I think you only played 6 games, and anything can happen. And I think we're ready for that. I think we're ready to see Clemson just not go to the finals. Justin Fields, Justin Fields hears what people are saying about him. He's not stupid.
Yeah,
he's going to go out there and bomb everybody to death.
People are down on him.
It makes me mad, all these Fairweather fans. He's great, and then everybody just turns on him in one weekend,
Yeah, for a couple rough games. Yeah.
Right. And you know what that is? That's all just youthfulness, Mark. He went out, he partied, he got laid 3 extra times. You know what I mean? It's just youthfulness. They can't always be like at their best standard ever. He'll be ready for the playoff.
I hope so, because he's going to be needed for them to keep it close. Otherwise, this... I
would give anything to see Clemson go down to Ohio State. They are so arrogant. I can't take those people no more.
I will let the folks know that are calling in right now. I will take your call in just a second.
I can't think of anything else to say. Go Ohio
Okay,
State.
George. We appreciate it, man. Thanks, man.
See you later.
See ya.
Bye.
All right, folks, you are now... Folks, you are now... there we go. Got a call coming in. And again, apologies for the ragtag show. A bit off my game, had some things to take care of, and here I am, 75 minutes late. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
How you doing, Mark? I almost missed you there.
I know it. I'm good. How are you, Dave?
I'm excellent. Bad day if you're a defensive coordinator. You lose your job today.
Yeah, there's a few out there.
LSU parts ways with Bo Pelini, and Jim Harbaugh, long overdue, fires his man Don Brown.
Yeah.
They were like joined at the hip.
Well, if anything, I know that this last season was rough with Don Brown, but if you just purely look at statistics, he did his job.
I hear you, but as I've said, when they faced at least competent offenses, they usually did struggle. I mean,
they did.
When they faced that's all I'm saying. And they gave up a lot of points. I mean, not just like, 35 or 34, but there was like some 40, 50, 60-point games in there. So, I don't know. I mean, I think one of the things that happens with these coaches, Mark, you know how it works. You get like a chance to maybe fire some assistants, move some assistants around, and then you bring in some other staff. And if that doesn't work out, guess who the next person to go is?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's it right there. And, the other thing with Don Brown, and I don't know if I'm completely accurate with this assessment, but I said this to Steve Dace a few weeks ago that in my eyes, any successful coach has tenets or pillars of what they believe. And I'm not going to get into from an organizational or cultural standpoint. I'm just talking about on football on the field. Certain tenets of the game that they believe in, whether they're an offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator, that, this is the best way to approach it. This is the way I grew up. This is the way I think it's the best way to approach it. But they have so I think that's a good thing to know who you are and what you believe in and what the best approaches are. But you also have to be able to take that philosophy, look at the personnel, look at the situation, and then adapt. And he just kind of put his head down and just did what he does, and there was no wrinkle to it.
Yeah, I think that's going to be interesting to see if that change produces any results for Mr. Harbaugh's sake, but I hope it does. Were you a little surprised to see Pelini out at LSU?
No, I wasn't surprised. They were better late in the season, but mostly awful defensively. They actually got better the more people they lost. The more players they lost, they seemed to play a little bit better down the stretch against Texas A&M. And, well, the Ole Miss game was a typical Ole Miss where it was a 53-48 game. So discount that one. And, of course, Alabama torched them, but they do that to everybody. But they played well to a certain extent against Florida, and they played Texas A&M well, although Mond was awful in that game. That helped them out. But, yeah, Bo Pelini, second stint there. And that's something about the way the game has changed at the collegiate level in the last 15 years. You take a guy like Bo Pelini, who was highly successful as a defensive coordinator 15 years ago. I think some people are able, and some coaches able to adapt to the changes in the game, and then others are, if you grew up as he did in the 80s and played in the 80s and then started coaching in the 90s and through the 2000s. And I'm not saying he's incapable of adapting, but I got to think that if the game has evolved so much that some adapt better and are able to evolve with it and others aren't.
Right. I mean, obviously, when he was a defensive coordinator, when LSU won at 07, it was a lot different style game at that particular period of time, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
That's just going to be interesting to see if they bounce back down there. I mean, I know they're recruiting really well at LSU, but I'm wondering, with Ogeron going forward, if that's a situation where they caught lightning in the bottle last year, they had the greatest season a college quarterback ever had, and, whether there's a bounce back season or two here down the road for him. It's going to be interesting to see. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but obviously it's going to be tough to ever repeat what they did last year, of course.
Well, I think that they underachieved after the trip to the national championship game in 11.
Right.
They brought in almost exclusively top 10 classes and top 5 classes and lost 3 to 4 games every year. That was a run of 8-4 and 9-3 every year. I actually was digging here we go. I was starting to work on some information for a video, and I had here it is. I got the recruiting ranking for each team in the SEC for the entire decade. And this is going back. So I was trying to measure starting with the first college football playoff team, but that would go back to recruiting classes starting in 2011. And LSU was 8, 13, 6, 2, 5, 2, 7, 15, 5, and 4. They had an average rank of 6.7. And they haven't been the 6th best team in the country during that time.
Well, yeah, Miles was recruiting at an incredible level. What was crazy to me, Mark, is he had a team in 2013 that had 2 receivers by the name of Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry.
Yeah.
And then had a running back, an NFL running back in Jeremy Hill, who played with the Bengals for a few years. And that team lost like 4 games because it had Zach Mettenberger as its quarterback, who was awful. And, that's the bottom line with LSU. Is they finally found the quarterback. They've always had recruited a lot of other positions really well over the years, skill players, the trenches, all of that. But, obviously they had the right quarterback last year.
See, I was going to say they had a decent quarterback. When you were leading that up to Zach Mettenberger, I was going to say, well, they had a guy that actually started games in the NFL. Like, he was the first guy since I don't know when, it would have been Jamarcus Russell, that actually started games in the NFL. No, he wasn't great by any stretch, but I didn't think he was awful.
Well, he was okay. Like the guy that beat us in 07 was Matt Flynn. He was decent, but he wasn't great. He was like, he was like a journeyman type NFL quarterback, basically.
Yeah.
So, right. Hey, a couple thoughts on the bowl games, Mark. By the way, are more and more players going to sit out that Florida game? Because I think that they're losing like players left and right, aren't they?
Well, Kyle Pitts announced immediately. I haven't seen anybody else. We can certainly look that up. I haven't kept up on that besides Pitts.
Right. Well, I mean, I think you were mentioning the other day that that's the game, and I agree with you. That's the game outside the playoffs that I think could be the most entertaining game. So it'd just be a shame that, but this is the bowl season, and we know how it works nowadays, because if you're not playing in a playoff game, you basically, a lot of these players are sitting out. I mean, we were talking about it with Georgia against Cincinnati, and we've seen it the last few years where a lot of the star players, if it's not a playoff game, are sitting out,
Yeah. I'm trying to, let's see. I would love to find a list of players. Sometimes 247 Sports or somebody will compile a list, but I don't see one. Yeah.
It's interesting, Mark, because remember in the BCS era, these guys wouldn't sit out major bowl games. Like they'd play in the Fiesta or they'd play in the Rose, or it didn't seem as prevalent, let's say, in the BCS era, did it?
No. Oh, it's just become more prevalent, just period. Just period. Yeah, I cannot find anything on this. All of it goes back to players that opted out to start the season. Missouri's got a top linebacker that's like a top 50 NFL draft pick. Bolton, he's opted out. Kyle Pitts, the 3 North Carolina studs. That completely changes the complexion of that game against Texas A&M. Best running back, wide receiver, and defensive player gone. Yeah, it's too bad.
Yeah, it totally turns what could be a lot more exciting games into maybe, and now they're playing backups, and yeah, I hear you. I was going to say, by the way, Mark, did you propose for an expanded playoff an 8-team or a 16-team playoff?
So my original thought has always been 16 if you include the group of 5 and 8 if you just go Power 5. Although I certainly think it would be a huge improvement for the people that propose an 8-team with one bid going to the group of 5. The top group of 5 included in the 8. But I'm a big proponent of conference champions. Therefore, the 16-team model is the 10 conference champions, albeit I will readily admit those aren't the 16 best teams in the country. They're the 11 best teams in the country, and then there's a bit of a cascade after that. But generally, generally the 18 playoff, understanding that there is a pretty stark, disparity going to the MAC champion, the Sun Belt champion in those teams, and that they could just go play their own playoff.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing about it is, I think I had heard somebody from ESPN say that, if you, and you've even said this before, you just watch some of these non-Power 5 teams, and you see them on the field, and you're like, there's no way that team could match up with, a legitimate top 10, let's say Oklahoma or, Georgia or somebody like that. Although, you know what, that's what I said, the Cincinnati game will be interesting with Georgia, just for the simple fact to see if they can stay competitive in that game or maybe even have a chance to win it. I hope that's a good game. I really do. I hope Luke and Cincinnati can at least make it a good game, but we shall see. By the way, I think that Joel Klatt, it was long since not been a fan of expanding the playoff.
Yep.
Actually, I thought I heard him today. He proposed like a 16-team playoff or something like that. So
I went to 16.
I think he's,
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of people are starting to come on board, Mark. I think that they see, like we've talked about before, that it's cycling through the same 3 or 4 teams every year. And if you could get more teams in the playoffs, you could get more, players to stay. And maybe that also helps, spread the talent a little bit more. I don't know if that would work, but what do you think?
Well, those are interesting theories. and they make sense. I don't know if that they haven't been proven, so I don't know that they will come to roost. But yeah, I don't know if Penn State, Texas, Miami, Texas A&M, fill in the blank of the second, third, fourth place teams generally in conferences, if they get better recruits, knowing that, okay, if you finish second in the Big Ten, second or third in the SEC, you're going to go to the college football playoff, and therefore they're going to be able to recruit better. I don't know that players. I don't know. I don't think anybody knows. It's conjecture.
Well, yeah, I think it would be how success. If they got into the playoff and had like a good run, then I think that would. I mean, because winning obviously is the ultimate trump card there as far as being able to help get the recruits too. So, yeah, I think that would definitely help.
Yeah, LSU never went to a college football playoff until last year, and that didn't seem to stop them from getting near the best recruits. Texas, the same thing. They're not even coming anywhere close to a playoff, and they're doing fine. USC under Clay Helton, they had a really awful class 2 years ago, but besides that, they've had top 5 classes at USC under Clay Helton. I don't know what's running through these players' minds. I think it's a fairly long list of what they're looking for when they go places.
Well, you know what? And we talked about it before, and I heard you and Pete talk about it on the show. Bottom line, you have to have the right. You not only have the right to have the right head coach, but you have to have the right staff and assistant coaches to be able to develop the players too. So I think that's also where I think a lot of these coaches have missed, is that they haven't gotten the right assistants, but they need. They may be good recruiters, but they haven't been able to get in there and develop their players into future NFL players, as well as the other programs that are doing that on a consistent basis.
And
that's where it really comes.
Yeah, and it's a twofold skill set that these assistant coaches have that I don't think we talk about much. I don't hear much discussion about. A head coach weighing, okay, this guy's a super recruiter, but I think he's a pretty average position coach, or vice versa.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, that's I always said it's a two-part thing. As a college coach, you not only need to be able to recruit, but you also have to be able to build together a really good coaching staff. And, because your staff is the ones that are going to have to be able to do that twofold thing of recruit them and develop them. So, yeah.
For sure.
All right. Well, as always, a pleasure, my friend. Good discussion.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it so much. Have a good one.
Take care, Mark.
You too.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Our man, David Greenshield. And our main guy here, Shane Castellanos, with the Super Chat contribution. Appreciate that so much, Shane, more than you know, because this channel, this particular show, but the entire channel will stay alive based on your individual contributions and hopefully some sponsorships. We need to come through with some sponsorships. Got to get to work on that. So if you have any ideas out there in regards to sponsorships, and I'm talking about real ideas, not some of you have contacted me via email and just said, Mark, why don't you go get Dick's Sporting Goods? Okay. Yeah. Don't need those kind of suggestions. If you have real contacts, real ideas toward getting a sponsorship, please contact me at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. But again, back to the individual contribution here from Shane. Urban to Georgia Tech, Saban to Kansas, Dabo to Arkansas, Bowden to UCLA, 2-year contract, who has the better record? Well, for the first year, certainly the team that they're inheriting will have much to do with how good they are. Now that the coaching excellence will pay dividends the longer that they stay, but since it's only 2 years, they'll have a great impact, all those guys, especially Urban and Saban. Dabo has never coached anywhere else, so we don't necessarily know if he went somewhere else. I think we can trust that if Dabo Swinney went somewhere else, that he's built up so much credibility that he would be effective there as well. But Urban, Saban have done it. They have done it certainly at multiple places and won big. Bowden to UCLA. Are we talking about Bobby Bowden? Who are we talking about? Bowden to UCLA. Am I missing somebody out there? So right now, the best team out of those four is probably Arkansas, slightly over UCLA, and Kansas is by far the worst. So I'm going to give, and then they got to play in those specific conferences, which is basically the same: ACC, Big 12, Pac-12. Not a big difference there. I'm going to say that Kansas is just so awful, but you're giving Nick Saban the worst situation. That Dabo to Arkansas, I'm in favor of that marriage right there. Dabo to Arkansas, best record out of those teams. BW and Aztec Nation. And the thing about Dabo going elsewhere, again, as I'm stating here, Urban, Bowling Green, Utah, Florida, Ohio State, boom, 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 turns them all into powers, wins big. Nick Saban, it was not Michigan State necessarily, although his last team was really good, finished 10-2. He wasn't there for the bowl game. Then he goes to LSU, national championship, Alabama, arguably the best program of all time during his stint. Okay, so those guys proved wherever I show up, it's going to turn around. And what's an interesting dynamic to that is obviously early in the process. So for Urban Meyer at Bowling Green in Utah, it was more about his just sheer ability to coach, to organize, to motivate, to select the right staff, recruit, do all those things that are fundamental to coaching and building a program. But the further he came along, then to Florida, then certainly to Ohio State, then a reputation builds with it that helps the process and proves the point and becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because he's just so good that he's not only just that good, but he's seen as that good. Therefore, people just flock to it. Players just flock, and there's a confidence that, okay, we're going to listen to Coach because he's the man. At Bowling Green, Urban Meyer got their attention because he was effective. He was good, but they didn't know he wasn't Urban Meyer then. At Utah, he wasn't Urban Meyer. He was just effective. Same thing with Nick Saban to a certain extent, Michigan State, LSU, Alabama, that they almost become self-fulfilling prophecies unto themselves because they're so good at what they do that the credibility and the interest and the recruiting helps itself because they have such reputations. All right. Trying to stay awake, David. I'm with you. Shane, appreciate that. Smash that like button. Here we go. Aesthetics Hardstyle. I need one more person for the Bama Challenge. I bet anyone $10 that Bama wins the national championship, but the winnings go to Mark's channel. I am all for this. So let me see. If I go like 100 times into this, that's $1,000, and then it just all comes back to me, right? But Aesthetics Hardstyle. Aesthetics Hardstyle. I so much appreciate his offer, and it's a good one. So people jump in on that one. You've got Clemson, Ohio State, and of course Notre Dame. Clemson, Ohio State, and Notre Dame against the field for $10, and the proceeds come to the channel. Aesthetics Hardstyle. Great idea. Thank you so much. What have you guys seen that gives you any reason to believe Ohio State can hang with Clemson this year? Well, as we talked about at length last night, I have reason to believe Ohio State can hang with Clemson because their talent roster is just as good. But the reason I would believe that Clemson would be a winner and maybe a decided winner this year would be that Clemson looks better this year. Ohio State looks worse. Ohio State has lost elite players on defense and a great running back. And even though Trey Sermon hit up Northwestern for 331 on the ground, he's not J.K. Dobbins. I should run polls on the community page on my channel, run a couple polls on the winner of the games. We should do that. David, Mark, my point about Ohio State is that I do not believe they were able to execute their entire schedule where they could utilize their talent as a football team, too much stopping and starting. So I completely agree. While most of the focus has been on Ohio State's got an advantage because they're fresh, there's also the argument, and I think it's a valid one, that these players are used to playing 12 to 14 football games in a year. Ohio State played 6, and it was sporadic. It was 6 in 9 weeks. So they have stopped and started. I think they played 2 games, were off, 2 off, 2 off. So it's been sporadic for Ohio State, and they haven't played since they played Michigan State on, I believe that was November or December 12th. No, that would have been December. Whoa. Hello, there was something called the Big Ten Championship game. Yeah, that they played last week. But before that, they missed the Michigan game they played November 5th and didn't play the week before that. So six games. It just doesn't seem like that much to be sharp. Does not seem. And on top of that, David, to extend your point, there are tons of players on the Ohio State team that didn't play those 6 games. They had so many issues with COVID. They had 23 players miss the Michigan State game. They had 4 of their 5 starting offensive linemen miss that game. Tough Borland's missed games. They had a number of players in the secondary miss games, and that doesn't even include injuries. That's just due to the COVID guidelines, guys missing games. So it may not be a sharp Ohio State team that plays Clemson. So the last caller, Dave, gave me an idea about possibly putting together a video where we measure a group of 5 performance in the New Year's 6, the top group of 5, that top team, Memphis last year against Penn State, and see what are the actual results of top teams in the group of 5 playing and competing against the Power 5. And again, I'm not talking about the 5th place team in the American Conference. I'm not talking about Temple playing North Carolina and losing 55-13 last year. Talking about Cincinnati this year, talking about Memphis last year. So since the BCS, or not the BCS, but since the college football playoff era, 2014, that team was Boise State. They beat Arizona. I don't necessarily know that Arizona was representative of a top Power 5 team. That Arizona team made the New Year's 6 because Oregon went into the college football playoff. Arizona was selected as a New Year's 6 team. I believe they were 9-4. And they lost to Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game by some ungodly score. It was like 55-17 or something like that, 55-14. And then Arizona lost to Boise State. So anyway, Boise State, the best of the group of 5, beats Arizona, who's probably a top 25-30 team that particular year of 2014. The 2013 matchup was Baylor and UCF. UCF won that game 52-42. The That was a Bryce Petty versus Blake Bortles matchup in 2013. So there's 2 for the group of 5. In 2015, another win for the group of 5. Houston over Dalvin Cook in Florida State. Now, Florida State was missing its starting quarterback. Had to go with, I believe, J.J. Constantino in that one, if I remember correctly. Or it was Constantino who got hurt. No, it was DeAndre Francois got hurt. And it was some combination of Ryan McGuire and J.J. Constantino that had to play in the Peach Bowl against Houston. Houston with, who was the great defensive tackle that was drafted by the Buffalo Bills out of Houston? Losing his name, not Ed Reed. Anyway, somebody will get that for me, right? The Houston D tackle, who was a top pick in the NFL draft, not the number 1 selection, but near the top. University of Houston, Buffalo Bills, Ed Oliver. Yes. Houston beat Florida State. So there's 3 straight years. Then in 2017, UCF beat, 2016. Oh, that was the Wisconsin-Western Michigan matchup, PJ Fleck. Wisconsin won that by 8, 24-16. Then you add the UCF year where they beat Auburn. So there's 4-1. And then 2018 was also UCF. They lost to LSU. So that's 4-2. And then last year was, of course, Memphis lost to Penn State. So that's pretty good representation out of the group of 5. The best of the group of 5 playing like a top 10 to 15 team in the New Year's 6. There it is. Thank you, David. Phil, yeah, so if we take it back a year before the 2013, I mentioned Baylor, Central Florida in 2013, 2012. Northern Illinois was the team that made it against Florida State. That was a 34-10 game. Jordan Lynch at quarterback for Northern Illinois. And, of course, E.J. Manuel, Florida State. 2011, there might not have been a team. 2012 might have been the first year they did that. 2011, I don't remember a BCS game with a group of 5. Now, 2010, you had TCU in the Rose Bowl against Wisconsin. They won 21-19. And then going all the way back to 2006, you had the Boise State game against Oklahoma. So, yeah, it's been fairly impressive what the group of 5 has done. Again, the number 1 group of 5 team against about the number 10 or 12 team, usually in that range. 2007 was Colt Brennan, Hawaii. They got blown out by Georgia in the Sugar. 2009 was Cincinnati, got annihilated by Urban Meyer and Tim Tebow. That game was, I think, 37-3 at halftime. And it didn't matter what it was after that. It was like 62-24. Johnny Bays. This might be a new thing here. We got Aesthetics Hardstyle with the challenge to everyone. He takes Bama. Everybody takes the field. And now it's Johnny Bays. And I'll take Clemson if anyone wants to bet. Money to the channel. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate that. It's good stuff. Hey, it's Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Marcus Michael. How you doing this morning, sir?
Michael, it is this morning, isn't it? Yes, doing well.
Yeah, a lot of us was actually concerned with the wondering something might have happened to you when he didn't start your stream last time.
Oh, well, yeah, things are fine. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. I got a question with you. With Bo Pelini and Don Brown being fired in Michigan, that is three defensive coordinator positions open. LSU, Purdue, and Michigan. I don't know which, if you was Jeff Brom, and I don't know why I'm asking about you, if you had to choice between Bo Pelini and Don Brown, who would you take as your DC? Or would you not even touch it with the 10-foot pole?
Well, I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole, but if I had to choose one of those two, I'd take Don Brown. And that's only because he's been coaching. He has shown that he at least can be successful in the Big Ten and in the Power 5 recently. Bo Pelini hasn't been a defensive coordinator since he took the Nebraska job. What year was that? That was like 2008, 9.
2008, somewhere in there, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was just wondering to get your take about it and stuff like that. And what, I mean, do you know, besides those two and Will Muschamp, who I'd rather have Don Brown than Will Muschamp, do you know what other DTs might be out there?
You would rather have Don Brown than Will Muschamp? Really?
Will Muschamp.
Really?
Or
As
would
a
you
defensive
recommend Will
coordinator?
Muschamp?
I would take Muschamp over Don Brown. Absolutely.
Oh, all right.
As a
was
D
wondering
coordinator,
stuff like that.
yes.
Yeah.
And as a head coach over Don Brown, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was just wondering if you seem like you're talking to me, or is it still too early in the process, you think? That there might be some that's opening up soon.
I wonder what Derek Mason's doing these days. Derek Mason was an excellent D coordinator at Stanford.
Mm-hmm.
And he's looking for a job.
I don't know. Yeah, not bad. All right, hey, Mark, one last thing before I let you go. I know with the holiday coming up, are you going to be doing shows Wednesday, Thursday, and then you got on Saturday, or is Wednesday your last show again until next week?
I would think that we'll do it this way. So Wednesday, tomorrow, we'll be here. Thursday is Christmas Eve, so I'll be with my kids. You know what? Actually, Christmas night, by the time we get to Christmas night, everything's shut down. You know, Christmas is over for me. So I might be right back at it Friday night. I think I will be. Friday night, and then Saturday we've got, I think, 3 bowl games. So we'll be here.
Not bad. I know there's still a week to go left in 2020, and I can't wait for it to get over with. Hey, Mark, thanks for what you did with it, man. I love what you do. Let me be part of your streams and stuff like that, and let me call into the show and stuff. I really appreciate it.
Michael, I apologize. I know we've had a couple back and forth about moderator position, and not that you need to hear all this, but I apologize because with the other people that I've made as a moderator, I was told I've never made anyone a moderator, so I had to Google, you know, how do you do this? And I was told just have the person make a comment to one of the videos. You'll be able to right-click or find a drop down next to their name, and then you'll be able to make them a moderator. Well, it worked with certain people, and with other people, it didn't work. And with you, it didn't work. And so then the next thing I was told was that, and I would think this would work with you since we've traded emails, that if I found the place where I add moderators, that if I start to type in the person's name and it populates their Gmail address, that I can make them a moderator. But that didn't work either. So we'll stay with it, and I'll see what I can do. But I appreciate your offer. So I would love for you to be a moderator. I just haven't been able to figure out for some reason. And it's not just you. It's like certain people. I don't know what the deal is. So, but I thank you so much for the well wishes. I appreciate that.
Not bad. So what's on the late night run for the Waffle House tonight? You probably be up till 3 in the morning.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that actually sounds good. That sounds really good. It does remind me that my daughter bought frozen waffles the other day. Maybe I'll have to stoop to that level, but that's fine because I'm mighty hungry. All right. That's good stuff.
All right, then. All right. I don't know if you talked about it earlier, but maybe you'll talk about it, or maybe I'll catch it after your stream's over, but catch your take about BYU and UCF. But hey, Mark, thank you again. Take care, man. Have a great night.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. Okay, you too. Bye.
You know, I got to say that if you watched me in previous years, and certainly Michael is one of these people, that I was very consistent about posting previews and also recaps, instant analysis on like almost every bowl game. Oh my goodness. I would do every one, and I would do the St. Petersburg Bowl, and it would get 49 views, but I was just determined I'm going to preview every bowl game, and I'm going to do a recap on every bowl game. Well, I've let 3 slip by me, and I got to say, App State and North Texas, I started to watch the replay today, caught a little bit. I thought that my take would be to not necessarily recap the game because it's old news, but to basically kind of look at each team and see what they have coming back and do kind of a look ahead. North Texas, look ahead. App State, look ahead to 2021 and kind of give a 2021 way too early preview and let you know who they lost, who's coming back, look at the schedule, that sort of thing. So I'll do that, I believe. But to Michael's point, I really was going to, I had the intent of going and doing a UCF BYU because I thought it was going to be a great game, and I started taking notes on the game. Then I got tied up with some personal stuff, and I got about that far on my notes, and then it turned into a blowout, and I was like, we'll let that go. What I have taken notes on recently was I was going to go through the 247 Sports rankings since we just passed National Signing Day this past Wednesday, and there's quite a few players, 4 out of the top 16. I'm guessing 60 to 70 out of the top 300 who have yet to sign. And I was going to go through those players and kind of highlight those players. You got Corey Foreman, #1 rated player in America, regardless of position, looking at USC and Clemson. He's a defensive end. You got JT Tui Mala'au. He's the great defensive end out of Washington, the state of Washington, considering Washington, but he's a heavy lean to Ohio State, and I'm going to have to learn how to pronounce his name. I think it's Tui Moloau. There it is, Tui Moloau. And then you got Tristan Lee, who's looking at Oklahoma and LSU. He's the 4th rated offensive tackle in the country. You got Terrence Lewis. A lot of Miami fans are high on him. He decommitted from Tennessee, still looking at Auburn and Tennessee. #16 player overall, best rated inside linebacker. Also, I thought maybe some people would be interested in checking out, I'll have to post a video. It's basically the standings in all the Power 5 conferences versus what my prediction was. And then I'm also going to look at the comments because this is quite amusing to see the comments that were made at the time. Like when I said Florida was going to go 7-3, and they went 8-2. I won't even include 8-3 because they had to make the conference championship game to be tagged with the 3rd loss. But that Florida went 8-2, I picked them 7-3. So I consider that a decent prediction, not a great one, but I'm within 1 game. Georgia, I had going 8-2. They went 7-2. They didn't play 1 game, so I was pretty much I was dead on Georgia, and so forth on down the line. So, and then the one thing I did not pull through on that I got to do, even if nobody cares about this at this point, I did a comparison on Oklahoma, Texas A&M, and Notre Dame, and I really lined up a number of comparisons, points per game, yards per game given up, points per game given up, best loss, their losses, their best wins in order, point differentials, all that kind of thing. The things that we work on. There's the number. Remember, grab the Amazon link. I should probably do this. I should do this every live stream, is actually put the Amazon link in the live chat to make it easier for all of you. First point of sales is make it easy for the person, for the consumer. I'm not doing that, am I? I'm telling you to go to another video, grab the link that says Amazon. People aren't going to do that. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
it's Dominic. How you doing tonight?
Hey, Dominic. I'm doing just fine. Do you know where that Amazon link is, Dominic?
Oh yeah. I've seen it.
I'm just kidding with. I'm just kidding with
show.
you, Dominic. I'm just kidding with you. I'm just kidding. What's on your mind tonight?
Nothing much really. I mean, I'm just chilling, trying to get to sleep for some whatever reason. I just can't, but I'm trying to. That's pretty much all I can say. But anyway, on to the college football game that I pretty much watched about 3 quarters, but I missed the 4th.
Of tonight's game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
BYU and UCF.
Yeah. I was hoping it was going to be a really good game, and it was not.
Yeah, same here. But man, what was going on with BYU that game?
They were playing well. I would pin it more on UCF. I certainly didn't see a lot of good tackling and a lot of blown coverages, mostly blown coverages for UCF. The defense was horrendous.
Exactly. UCF, I mean, I thought they were going to do a whole lot better that game, but guess I was wrong.
Yeah, I was too. There's nothing wrong with being wrong once in a while. That's okay. I was right there with you, Dominic.
Absolutely. Well, I was mostly just kind of late on the show because I know you were busy and stuff. So
yeah, unfortunately, we get a late start tonight, so I appreciate everybody hanging out, and I apologize for that.
yeah, I know. Okay, well, I'm gonna let you go, and you have a good night, Mark.
Thank you so much, Dominic. Take care. David, I just caught David Knight. If you're on the line, David Knight just he had texted me earlier just to make sure I'm okay. Thank you for that, David. I appreciate that. I didn't see that. Yeah, I was fine. Certainly fine. Just something that had to be taken care of. Yes, Eggo waffles, really, really good. I used to buy tons of those, tons of them. Used to eat them all the time. Then my kids, when my kids were little, I don't know if this is a little kid thing, but my kids, when they were little, they used to eat the waffles frozen. They would just take them right out of the box and just shove them in their mouths, frozen. Thought that was disgusting. I didn't teach them to do that. And now they get the, so my daughter came over the other day and I said, stop by the store, get whatever you want. She bought cinnamon waffle. I'm not big on the cinnamon toast waffles. And I don't even eat, I used to love waffles and eat them all the time, but I have maybe it's an obsessive compulsive type behavior where I get like tunnel focused on something to eat, something that I watch on TV, and then if I get off of it, then it's gone. It's gone. And then like I'll come across shows on TV and I'll think, man, I loved that show 5 years ago. I was totally into it. And then I don't know what happened. It wasn't like I said, this sucks. It just like my life pattern changed and took me in a different direction. And then suddenly it's just off the radar. I'm like that with watching the news on TV. Watching, like I'll be heavy into it for a couple months and then it's out of my life.
Drop the call or choose to decline.
All right. And for those of you who were around this time last year going into the off season, I was promising that I would upgrade the call-in system for the next season, and look where we are. So my apologies. So I'm going to say that again. That certainly we spent the money, and then I got this this deal over here the other day. This is some kind of graphics mixer that's going to take some learning. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's McD Sports 4. How are you doing?
Hey, McD, what's going on?
I'm doing pretty good. I'll admit I did not watch any of the BYU UCF game because I was watching the opening night for the NBA instead. Yeah, I know.
I hate the NBA.
Yeah. Dude, I mean, one game was a blowout. The other game was competitive, but someone showed out finally. But I did. For everything I'm reading, it sounds like UCF's defense sucks. So. Yeah,
it was one of those deals where I had some things I was working on, so I didn't. I DVR'd it. So then I started watching like an hour late, but I was catching up on the DVR. Oh yeah, the first 3 drives of the game, BYU scored like it was nothing. Like guys just running open in the secondary, blown coverages constantly. It was just easy. Zach Wilson took off about 3 times where the sea just parted. There was no contain by the pass rush, and he just like would take off and run for 30 yards. Yeah. I thought it was going to be a decent game. But not at all.
I mean, yeah. Well, I'm glad that BYU only had one loss season. I mean, they haven't had a good team like that in a while. Now, granted, against all group of 5 schools, basically, but glad to see them have a pretty good season. But I'm calling for a few reasons. Number one, I just want to clarify something from my last call that someone brought up. I was saying I wish Maryland played Ohio State. I was talking about the talent level. I wasn't talking about a competitive level. I was talking about a talent level.
Yeah, I think people were jumping on you. You said something about Maryland's better than Northwestern, or somebody else you threw out there, maybe Indiana. And I even clarified that. I even said that to a couple people. Well, maybe it was one later caller said, that guy's crazy. He thought, and I said, no. He's not saying that Maryland.
I heard it.
He's saying if you look at the recruiting rankings, they've recruited better than those 2 schools. Yep. Yeah.
I just meant on a talent level. I know Northwestern's a better team than Maryland. I'm just talking about on a talent level. But a few things I want to talk about. One, I do not understand why, and I know the bowl game got canceled, but I do not understand why 2-8 South Carolina got into a bowl game. That is absolutely pathetic as far as I'm concerned, and I'm glad that the bowl game got canceled. They did not deserve to get into a bowl game. If it was a normal season, they would have won probably 5-7 with their 2 SEC wins because they would have lost to Clemson in the non-conference, so that team had no business. And a few other teams as well, like LSU was going to be thrown into a bowl game. It looks like, it looks like just every Power 5 school, as long as you had 2 wins, we're going to get thrown into a bowl game. And that's just unacceptable. And I think that's, to be frankly, completely honest, I think that's ludicrous that was going on. So I'm glad to see some of these schools decided to opt out.
I get your point, McD. I get your point, but I am going to make this a slight disclaimer. This being a different season. So a bowl game is a reward for a good season. That was the original intent, that you have a good season, even if it's not a championship season. You get a bowl trip and you get to go to St. Petersburg, Florida, or Houston, Texas, or somewhere that's a decent locale, and you spend 5 to 7 days and you get to ride roller coasters or go to banquets or whatever you get to do. And it's a reward for the players in addition to preparing to play a football game. So the one reason I don't have an issue with anybody being able to play in a bowl game is that it's just a football game now. It's just you are going there just to just to get ready to play a football game. All the bowl activities and all of that has been crushed by the pandemic. They're not doing that. So it's not a reward necessarily. It's just, you're just playing a football game.
I get that. And listen, I wish everybody could make a bowl game. But, I mean, it comes to me, at the end of the day, what it comes to is that argument, should everybody get a trophy or not? I'm not really going to get into the whole logistics of the argument per se, but I just don't believe a 2-8 team should be in a bowl game.
I agree with you. So McD, don't get me wrong. I agree with you. I'm just saying it's a bit different this year. And I got to say, when I saw the announcement today that South Carolina had to opt out and they weren't going to play UAB, I thought, that's too bad. I'll watch. I say that I watch every bowl game, and that's my intent every year. I'm off to a bad start though, because they kind of jumped on me this year. But I'd sit and watch UAB and South Carolina play. Why not? I'd be interested to see how that game would come out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I feel bad for UAB, but then 9-2 Army gets left out of a bowl game, but 2-8 South Carolina gets out of a bowl game. I'm glad that Tennessee decided to basically opt out of their bowl game,
yeah,
and Army got to play. I was glad to see that because there's no way that Army should have been left out of a bowl game at 9-2. But I had a bit of a gripe with some of those teams getting in. The second thing I want to talk to you about, Mark, is the Auburn new head coach, Brian Harsin from Boise State. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I'm glad you called about that because that's certainly the most important news of the day. So Brian Harsin certainly is not the guy that built the Boise State dynasty. That was built by Houston Nutt, and Chris Peterson was the guy that really made it take off. And Brian Harsin's done a fine job, 69-19 there, 3 conference championships in 7 years. He's pretty much maintained it. I wanted to catch up on some just facts and figures and to see, what the thought process was there. I know that Billy Napier turned down the job at Auburn, and which I'm surprised. Billy Napier turning down an Auburn job, that surprises me. And Brent Venables turned it down as well. So they get their third choice, and Brian Harsin, he has had over 25 job offers, according to the article I read, over 25 job offers in the Power 5 that he's turned down. And he's a Boise State guy, so he wasn't just going to leave there to go anywhere because he likes it there. It's his alma mater, so it had to be a really good job. But I don't really know that he has a distinctive style of offense or defense, that he does anything that crazy good. I think he's a very competent coach that's going to have to recruit his tail off, of course.
Yeah, I mean, as people are saying, like, oh, you got to go up against Georgia, Alabama, LSU's in your backyard, Florida's in your backyard. So obviously, like, you got and Texas A&M's coming as well. Supposedly, even though they did go 9-1 this year, so I assume we would be dissing them. But it's a tough recruiting job. But my opinion on it is this is a really underrated good hire. And the reason why is I know not a lot of people stay up to watch the Mountain West or the Pac-12. Brian Harrison, Boise State, they were in the Mountain West, but and they are kind of a national brand name, so people know who they are. But all he did was win a bunch of ball games there. He went like I think 67-25, something like that, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe it was 69-19.
69-19, even better than what I thought. I thought he had 20-something losses. But, and granted, he did lose the Mountain West this year to a pretty good San Jose State team that really flew under the radar this year, San Jose State. But overall, I think it's an excellent hire. I think, and he's a very underrated head coach. I'm shocked that he hasn't gotten out of Boise State. As you said, 25 job offers from the Power 5. I wonder what some of the schools are. But I think it's going to work out great for Auburn, personally.
Okay. Yeah, I would not be surprised. I know that he's well thought of out there.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
I have one more thing.
Sure.
Don Brown got fired at Michigan. What do you think about that?
Well, I thought it was time. You know, certainly statistics can be deceiving. He had a top 5 to 10 defense there at Michigan every year he was there, except for this year, even last year. But that was statistically, meaning, you know, Dave and I, a previous caller, talked about it, where they would dominate 9 opponents, maybe 10, and the other 2 or 3 would torch them. Ohio State, of course, and then whomever else. So that's not effective. That's great that you can beat the teams that you're a lot more talented than, but it just seemed as though he had one style of defense, and you know there weren't changes on the back end. There might have been changes up front in regards to blitz packages and some things that he would do up front, but he never helped out his back 7 with anything in regards to, it was just flat out, we're going to cover you man to man and leave these guys out on an island regardless. And like I stated to Dave, I think most really good coaches, any sport, especially in football, talking offensive and defensive coordinators, they have their philosophy of the way the game should be played. They have a offense or a defense that they love, that they believe is the best way to play offense or defense, but they're not so tied to it and so stringent that they can't move off of that they can't adjust it and do something different. And he just seemed like he was unwavering and not able to adapt.
I kind of disagree with you on some points. I agree he should have been let go, but I also think he's a bit of a scapegoat, only because I think the real problem at Michigan is that Jim Harbaugh basically put Michigan at a place where, like, they're good enough to go 8-5, 9-4 every year. I'm counting the bowl game in it.
Sure.
But they can't take the next step, and they're just stuck in that area. And eventually Jim Harbaugh, they were probably mutually agreed to part ways. Outside of Matt Campbell, I don't know what's the name out there that could really get them moving that next step. And I mean, I agree he should have been let go several years ago. I was saying after last year let him go, but overall, I think he's kind of scapegoated. But I'm glad to see Michigan at least trying to make some changes. We'll see what they do next season. But that's all I really got for you, Mark. Thanks for taking my call. Go Terps.
Thanks,
we'll do well next year.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
Our guy McD getting the job done. So always does. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Andrew says Iowa State beats Oregon. Peanut butter on pancakes. It's just me, Tim, 79. How about 31-0 Ohio State over Clemson? How about anything Ohio State over Clemson? By any numbers, I think Buckeye fans would take anything that is at least one digit higher than the other one. We have some push for Cincinnati getting that 4th seed. Oh, yeah. If you look at their opponents, the American Conference wasn't quite as good this year. Didn't appear to be. I'll preface that because otherwise Dave Greenshield might catch me on that, because I basically have been saying that all the conferences are the same because we can't evaluate them because they're not playing anybody else. But the American Conference seemed to have been a little stronger the last few years, with Memphis was better. Houston's been better. I don't know. again, no what is weighed down these records is no non-conference games against teams that these teams usually go out and go 3-0, 4-0, 3-1 against to bulk up their records, make them look better. Look at the SEC. Take all those teams that went, take an Auburn who went 6-4 in the SEC. Take away 2 of their SEC games. They probably would have gone 5-3 in the SEC. Let's say they would have gone 5-3 in their regular 8-game schedule in the SEC. Then they most likely would have went 4-0, maybe 3-1 non-conference. So they're 9-3 or 8-4, not 6-4. Georgia, the same thing. They went 7-2 against an SEC schedule of 9 games. Should have been 10 games. They probably would have gone. They would have won 7-2 because they still would have played Florida and Alabama 6-2 against the SEC. They would have gone 10-2. LSU and Auburn could not do the same things that BYU did to UCF. I'm not quite sure about that. They don't have the quarterback play. They have better athletes on offense, and they've got much better defenses than BYU. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, who's on the line?
Hello.
Yeah. Hey, what's going on?
Hey, is this Ben?
This is not Ben. My name's Mark. We're talking college football here.
Wait, Mark.
Yes, sir.
I haven't seen you since college.
Since college? Absolutely. Huh?
College? Oh my God, man, how have you been?
I've been doing well. It's been a few years. How you been?
That's awesome. I've been all right, man. I mean, my wife left me, took the kids. I lost my job, but I've been all right, man.
I got a counselor I can send you to.
Oh, no, it's all right. I've seen a couple of them.
Okay.
Hey, listen, man. I just want to say that I'm a really big fan of your show.
Appreciate that. It's nice to get that in. Okay. Got some big fans out there. Unfortunately, they're having a bit of a rough go, apparently. Okay. Maybe I'll start a counseling service here. We could do that. Any other good comments on here? Are you into the NFL? So there's at a point in my life that I actually knew more about the NFL than college football. But that was quite a long time ago. I do like the NFL. I really like the NFL. I probably watched less and paid attention less this year than at any point. But I'd say over the last 10 to 15 years, I've been a big red zone watcher. So I'm not an NFL fan that's like, I'm doing too much of this. I'm doing this constantly. So I don't have time, nor do I anymore have the interest to like go online every day and look at transactions in the NFL and read stories and look at stats and do all that. I don't do that. But I enjoy watching the NFL, and I'll sit here for a couple hours on a Sunday while I'm working on all this stuff and have the NFL on. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, who's on the line?
What's up, man? It's Dave Knight.
Hey, Dave. What's going on?
On the back end, the COVID virus. So I think I've navigated successfully.
Yeah. How was that for you?
Just slept a lot.
Okay.
But otherwise, everything's okay.
Okay. That's great to hear.
So
all of you talked about Ohio State. I really felt like when the first of the season started, I felt like they were the number one team. And everybody, in the side chat, everybody can make their remarks about who is the best football team, blah, blah, blah. And, like, I look at Alabama and Alabama's scores, and I think even sometime, Mark, you had alluded to, we're in a evolution of college football where high scores are going to be the way that things work out, right?
Sure.
So the only fear I have for Ohio State playing Clemson is that did they get enough practice time in? See, the difference, and you know this more than me, because I can see that your wisdom is far greater than mine, but will Ohio State had enough practice time against other teams where they could, work out the kinks instead of we played a game, then we set out 2 weeks. We played a game, we set out 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I think they have the talent. And the other thing that I've seen that the Ohio State defensive backfield has received a lot of criticism, but anybody that knows anything about football should know that defensive backs have to really are reliant on the pressure that the defensive line or the defensive scheme provides, right?
Sure. Yep.
I mean, we just can't run around back in the backfield and follow guys all the time. So what do you think moving forward? I'm asking about your team, Ohio State, because I think they're every bit as good as Clemson, but the only thing I think Clemson has got is that they've had that continuity that has followed throughout the season versus Ohio State, that starts and stops, starts and stops, and blah, blah, blah. Go ahead and throw it at me.
Well, I think that what you're getting at is that even though there's been a lot of criticism directed at Ohio State that they're going to be fresh and they only had to play 6 games, and I understand, yes, every time you take the field, there's a chance that you lose the game. But does anybody really think that Ohio State was going to lose to Michigan, Illinois, or Maryland? That they weren't going to lose to those teams. But yeah, there's a chance that you can lose the games. On top of that, of course, there is the wear down factor of the athletes getting nicked up, banged up, you losing flat out a significant player to injury for the rest of the season. That happening. So that's been the criticism against Ohio State, that they avoided some of that by not playing as many games. On the flip side, what you're talking about is I haven't heard a whole lot about. It's been mentioned from time to time, but it's not just that they only played 6 games, but in the manner of the 6 games that were played, stop and start, just like you mentioned, stop and start. And these guys are used to playing in a rhythm of game. The coaches and the coaching staffs have it mapped out to a T, what the routine of that week is like. And Ohio State basically, did that like twice in a row, twice. And that's it. And so they really don't have reps under their belt like the other teams do. To work out a lot of the things that they've had to. Now, the difference between being in between the 6th and 7th game in a regular season, where you're still working out those kinks, is you're playing teams that have also only played 6 games, and so they're at the same stage of the season. But you're not going to have that this time around. Going into the playoffs, you got a team that's played 6 games playing a team that's played 11. And we both know that there's generally a threshold there that goes from being where you are razor sharp and you've gotten enough reps to where it's starting to become a grind, a wear down effect, and the injuries take their toll. And we don't know exactly where that is. It's different for every team. But I don't think Ohio State reached that by any stretch. I think that they were still on the side of still working out the kinks and figuring things out. And beyond that point, David, would be that point's even extended by the number of players that missed those games. They had 23 players miss the Michigan State game. So it's not even like they've had their full complement of the roster for all 6 games, and we're making this point. They've had their full complement of a roster for 1 game. And then the other games, they've been missing 12 players or 13 players or 23 players. So they could be pretty rusty.
Yeah, Mark, my fear for Ohio State is they have not had enough snaps.
Yeah.
You know, and I think they have a talented roster. Obviously, as good as because let's just be honest. There's right now in college football, there's 3 power teams. That's Ohio State, that's Alabama, that's Clemson, and then you got some other guys trying to fit in, and they're working at it, they're doing their best. But right now, those are the teams, and I even believe next year we'll be saying the same thing. But my point is for Ohio State is I think they're equally as talented as Alabama or Clemson. But my fear for Ohio State, because look, I'm a Notre Dame fan, and I already know what's going to happen with Alabama. It's not going to be pretty. So I default over to rooting for Ohio State. I think Ohio State is a better football team than Clemson, but without having that preparation time where you could play live snaps is going to hurt them. And that's really why I called in, just to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's where I stand on that. Now, let me ask you this question. As a Notre Dame fan, let's say you do receive the beating. Well, no. We'll just stay where we are right now. We have no idea what's going to happen in the game. Would you rather have Notre Dame be in the playoff and facing these kind of odds, or would you rather have an Orange Bowl visit playing Florida or somebody that's supposed to be more on your level in a better game?
I was kind of thinking like maybe Cincinnati deserved that bit. If like in the first quarter of the game against Clemson, Notre Dame played them pretty tough. They left points on the field, but when you don't execute, you don't execute, and that's your problem to deal with. And in the second quarter, was just like the 2018 game. They had a barrage.
Yeah,
it was like deja vu again, and I felt like I posted on Facebook. I felt like Notre Dame didn't deserve to be in the playoffs. They sure as hell wanted to be Texas A&M. Because Texas A&M didn't deserve to be in there either. I would give the nod to Cincinnati. It wouldn't be Florida. Florida, you lost 3 games in 1 season. Sorry, not going to happen. I feel like Cincinnati earned that spot, and just because I think that doesn't mean it's correct. That's just one person's opinion, and that's obviously not. Because somebody thinks that, it doesn't mean that you're right. But I would have liked to see Cincinnati in there, because, Mark, here's one thing that would have happened by putting Cincinnati in there. That argument would have been settled based on what the results were against a different type of opponent.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense, because all of a sudden you say, okay, we put a team in there that maybe people didn't feel deserved to be in there based on their record, and not because they didn't win all their games, because they didn't play the toughest opponents, but we put them in there as a safe way to say, okay, we're going to give you a shot. Now you get ready to play, and then based on the results, then you can say, okay, well, we tried this experiment in the past, and this is the result of it. So that, just for me, that's just my thinking, right or wrong as it may be. And I don't know. I think Cincinnati earned their way in there, and for Notre Dame. That's my squad. That we have good players, but we can never get all the right players all on the team at one time. And then we have troubles matching up. And, you can't play one quarter and think, okay, well, we did pretty good against you, and now we're going to skate. And that's just not how that works out. So, also, Brian Kelly, he always plays players that are junior and senior heavy, and we've got talented 5-stars that he would not give a chance. And I you know what? I'm not him. I'm not on the coaching staff, so I don't know. I don't know how that pans out. So, but anyway, it's good talking to you, brother, and I'll let you pick somebody else up.
Absolutely, David. Thank you so much for the call, sir. Appreciate it. Glad you're feeling better.
Take care, brother. Okay.
David Knight, great supporter of the channel. And if Cincinnati was in that 4th position taking on Alabama, I wonder what the point spread would be. It's 17. I've heard it's jumped to 19 against Alabama. It would be 24 if it was Cincinnati. 24-point spread in a playoff game. David Greenshield had asked me to rank the Auburn job. I think it's 10 to 15 in the nation, right? I put it in that Florida's on the top end of this category, but the 3 schools I came up with are Wisconsin, Penn State, Florida. Like Tennessee, I still consider as a program, still a top 10 to 15 program. They really are. They're not playing like it and haven't for 13 years, but still that job pays, and they've got resources, and they've got tradition, and it's the 2nd most successful program in the SEC all time. I couldn't really come up with an equivalent in the Pac-12, maybe Oregon. And I know Oregon's better than Auburn, or kind of has been, because they won the Rose Bowl and won the Pac-12. Are they really? They lost to Auburn a couple of years ago, and I would say Oregon's probably in that same category. Texas is a strange one to rank because they should be higher, but their record says they're not. Oklahoma's higher. And then really everybody else in the Big 12 is not at the Auburn level. TCU, Oklahoma State, they're not at the Auburn level. Texas A&M, for as good as they are this year, they're still Auburn level. So the SEC is Florida, Texas A&M, TCU, or Auburn, Texas A&M, Florida mix. I really don't have an equivalent in the ACC because Florida State was higher. Now they're Miami. I don't think they're quite at Auburn's level. They're not playing like it, that's for sure. Again, talking about a program that hasn't done anything, hasn't won decently in 15 years, hasn't won big in 19 years, where Auburn has. So I'm looking at Penn State, Wisconsin, Oregon, top 10 to 15. The MacBook that is running the camera and the StreamYard that you see all the graphics on there, BW, is about, it's about 5 years old, 5 to 6, 2014 or 15, which reminds me, I've got some shopping to do. I've got to continue to upgrade equipment around here. I need a laptop, this one. So about 2 weeks ago, sitting here doing a show, got my water here, and I just do one of these, and there goes the water all over the laptop. Laptop just fried, just won't turn on, won't do anything, nothing. So I need to buy another laptop. I really could buy 2 would be great, but that's not going to happen. This is tremendous. So this comes up from, I did not plan this. Michael Hogue asking about the new laptop. So no, I did not yet. Wanted to do that before the end of the year so I could write it off my taxes, though. All right, everyone. Again, I want to remind everyone, shop Amazon. I don't think I have to remind people to shop Amazon. You guys just shop Amazon. The world, the country, the United States shops Amazon. That's all there is to it. So basically, yeah, JT Thompson, the vodka-proof MacBook would be if they could come out with that baby. So shop Amazon. Use the link in the description section of any of the videos. I'm just telling you, I know that I got 22,000 subscribers. Is it 23 now? Whatever it is. I'd say, you know, most of these videos get 2, 3, 4, 5,000 views. A lot of them get more than that. If everybody who shopped Amazon used the link that we provide, it would just bring in something substantial to the channel. Not $15 a month. That's what it's been doing. 15 bucks. Yes. That would be the one. I guess. What else with that? Also, your individual contributions are much appreciated, and keep this thing going as well. Make this possible. But also keep in mind that there are some other ways to contribute. Venmo, PayPal, Cash App. You can contribute there on the Super Chat as well. Also on Patreon. It's 15 cents a day. It's $5 a month on Patreon. And we have fun over there on Patreon. Exclusive watch parties and live streams per request. And a whole bunch more over there. Project Dynasty, 74 watching, 39 likes. And to make that even sound worse than that, because it is worse than that, Project Dynasty, it's not 39 likes with 74 people watching. If we've got 74 people watching right now, over the past hour and a half, we've had more like 500 people watching at some point. 39 likes. So please smash the like button, and I will take this call.
Press 1 to start the call or 2 to decline. The call will start at the beep.
MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hi, Mark. 28AD.
There he is. How's it going?
It's going, Mark. How about yourself?
I'm good. Thanks for asking.
Good. Mark, just had a quick question for you in terms of college football, and because I sort of feel like college football almost has like a competition problem, where there's not enough parity in the game. First of all, what do you think about the parity in college football? Do you think we've got any chance of do you think there's a parity problem?
Yes.
And do you think
Absolutely.
Do you think we have a chance to solve it? And if so, how so?
How should we solve it? Is it anyone's responsibility to solve it? It's not the NFL.
True.
So if you're the NFL, you're basically a corporation. There are individual corporations, but the NFL's its own corporation, and they want competitive balance to a certain extent because that's interesting and that's good for the health of the entire league and the entire corporation. But in college football, I think the conferences themselves want to be healthy top to bottom, but who would be having the incentive or the motivation to work toward this equity? You know what I mean? It's not like there's an NFL that's,
Sure.
I don't know who would be pushing this.
As a fan, do you think what we have now is healthy for the sport, or do you think it harms the sport? Or do you?
I think it harms the sport. And I don't feel it. I don't feel it for two reasons. I don't feel it as much as the average Joe who roots for Purdue or Kansas State, because number one, I root for Ohio State. So I'm one of the haves and not the 125 have-nots. Number two, the more I do this, and I've been doing this for a while, plus with my previous job being in the TV sports industry, you kind of lose attachment to individual games and all of that. So I still love the sport almost as much as I ever have, but it's more about just covering the sport rather than having this deep-seated allegiance to one team, which again, I'm still an Ohio State fan. There's no question about that. It's not even close. But, I'm not living and dying with wins and losses like I used to. But it is kind of, I think it's kind of sad that I said this to somebody, I think last night or the night before, that if, we're having this conversation in July every year, that if we asked everyone in the chat who's going to make the playoffs this year, 80% of them would put Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and then somebody else. Oklahoma, Georgia, Notre Dame would probably be the three best candidates over the last 3 or 4 years. And do I think that's good? I don't think it's good. I thought it was good from the time I started watching. And, this is in the late 70s up until maybe, I don't know what's happened. It seems to be in the last 5 or 6 years. Even before that, there seemed to be more Oregon, USC, Texas, some other teams. Oklahoma State had a nice few years there. Stanford was really good under Harbaugh, then
West
Shaw.
Virginia.
Yeah.
That 2007 year was crazy. West Virginia standing at the end. Sure.
Yeah. That year, Kansas almost played in the national championship game.
Yeah.
Missouri.
Yep.
That it's just, and not that I needed the reminder. Well, I guess I didn't need the reminder. It didn't bring new information to me. But last offseason, I was working on these national championship races from years gone by. I'm looking at 83. I'm looking at 84 and 90. And as I'm looking at this, I had forgotten that, take the Big Ten. Ohio State rules the Big Ten, of course, and has since 2005. And one of my go-to stats that once I stumbled on it, I didn't read this anywhere. I just observed it and was like, the worst Ohio State season. Again, we'll exclude the Luke Fickell year for the one time between Urban Meyer and Jim Tressel would be 7-1. So there's the worst year in the Big Ten for Ohio State since 2004, 7-1. So basically, for the 80s and the 90s, you could take over the course of 15 years, from about 1980 to 95, of course, Ohio State and Michigan contended, but Illinois was a frequent contender for the Big Ten title. So was Iowa.
Sure.
So was all sorts of teams at different times. Michigan State. And it's just, and then going to different conferences, Tennessee was good. And just every conference, you only had to go about for a 5 or 6 year stretch, and you could grab up about half the conference and say, at some point in that 5 or 6 years, more than half the conference contended for the conference championship. And that doesn't happen anymore.
Yep. Nope, it sure doesn't.
I thought that was better.
I think it was much better. Yeah, I like the whole, that 2007 year was crazy. I remember West Virginia had a shot. They were number 2 and they lost to Pitt. I think, pretty sure we played Missouri that year. I think Missouri was number 1 in the country going into the Big 12 championship game, and we knocked them off. And Missouri is number 1 in the country that deep into a season. Yeah, I mean, it's not happening now. Yeah, I think college football has a major problem, and I'm not sure. And like you said, nobody's really necessarily motivated to solve it. I do hope next year, I think, has a little bit of promise, just in the sense that I think maybe there may be more Kansas States next year. There may be more Northwestern next year, just in the sense that Northwestern is one of those teams, and you know this from following the Big Ten all your life. Northwestern is going to go 5-7. They're going to go 6-6. They're going to go 4-8. But once every 3 or 4 years, they're going to have that team that's got four starters to return on the offensive line. And maybe Northwestern's even more consistent with this.
Yeah.
They got 4 returners on the offensive line. They got a second-team all-conference tight end who's now the best tight end in the conference the following year. They got a 3-year starter at quarterback, and they returned 9 starters on defense. And they're going to be holy hell to play against. And they're going to go 9-3 or 10-2, and they're going to give it to everybody they play against. I'm hoping next year, Kansas State's that way too. They'll sneak up on you once every 4 or 5 years. Snyder will put a team together that's like, yikes, all elbows and knees, and you don't want to play them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping next year, because of the fact that players are going to leave the elite teams and take off to the NFL, but hopefully some of the seniors will stick around and come back and play an extra year. And those teams will be older and more veteran and more grizzled. And they'll be able to play and compete a little better with the elite teams that will be younger and breaking in younger players at key positions next year.
Now, that's a good point. That's almost taking a page from college basketball.
Yes, exactly, Mark.
That's a good point. That would be fun to see that where the teams that we all know of are still more talented, but they lose a ton of productivity because those guys are high draft picks, so they're going to go, versus the teams that the seniors are going to stick around for another year, have another go at it.
Yeah,
I hope that happens.
I hope so too, Mark. Can you imagine Northwestern next year if they don't lose a lot? Or Indiana next year if they don't lose a lot? Yeah. Iowa next year if they don't lose a lot? That's what I'm hoping happens for college football, because I think somehow, some way, we need to get a rebirth of there's more than 2 or 3 teams or 4 teams playing for a national championship every year, and everybody else is just sort of there as cannon fodder. It makes the game so much more interesting.
Yeah.
Robert Griffin.
Yeah, go ahead.
Or go ahead. Robert Griffin wins the Heisman Trophy. You wouldn't have that now because he'd have 4 losses. The Heisman would have to go to somebody who's sitting there at the top of the food chain. Yeah,
so that's a good question right there, or just a good. So if we look at the playoff era Heisman Trophy winners, you've got Mariota went to the championship game. You got Derrick Henry went to the championship game. You've got Lamar Jackson, who did not make the playoff. You've got 17. Oh, my goodness. What am I missing? Yeah, Baker was in the playoff. And, of course, 18. Man, I'm getting slow. Kyler Murray. And then Joe Burrow, both playoff. So it's going to continue this year. So 6 out of 7 made the playoff.
Sure.
You needed a guy to score 55 touchdowns for Louisville to break the aberration, the trend there. But before that, you did have guys that just, certainly the guys that played for the top 5 teams and contended for national championships had a leg up and won most of those Heismans, but it wasn't infrequent for a Baylor, for Baylor specifically, yes, but for a Baylor-type school, a mid-tier Power 5 to have a RG3, have a phenomenal year, only go 8-4, and have a Heisman Trophy winner.
Yep, Barry Sanders went 9-3 the year Oklahoma State won it.
Yeah, Doug Flutie didn't contend for a national championship.
Yep, Doug Flutie, same thing.
Ty Detmer didn't contend for a national championship. Rashawn Salam at Colorado in '94, they didn't come anywhere close to winning a national championship.
Right. Yeah, it's amazing. I'm hoping that somehow we get. So, Mark, what do you think has been the biggest contributor? Because I sort of wonder about our media at times. It seems like even watching college football or watching pro football, there's an underlying backdrop all the time that we do promote the same programs over and over and over again, and we only talk about the same programs over and over and over again. Like you watch college football live, right? You got a 30-minute show.
Yep.
22 minutes of programming, maybe 8 minutes of commercials. In those 22 minutes, probably 18 of those minutes is about the SEC. And I wonder sometimes if we're not, so what about the other conferences? How come I don't know that West Virginia has a really good defensive line, has 2 pro prospects on it. How come I don't know that? How come they don't educate fans and even introduce fans introduce fans to these other teams and other schools and other conferences? Because we're so fixated. We'll know more about, in the last 3 minutes of the show, they'll spend more time, instead of talking about West Virginia's defensive line, they'll talk about a joke that Nick Saban had at his press conference. Sure. And they'll all sit around in a circle and hee-haw about that. Yeah. It's like, really, that's what's more important? I mean, is this college football, or is this just are we promoting one school or one conference? It just seems like that's a problem with the promotion of the sport. Yeah. And I think it hurts the sport.
I think, it's fallen in line with the NFL and more so the NBA, in that as soon as you brought up that example, I was thinking of, we hear about the same players all the time. How,
yes, sir.
Now that we're at the playoff, I get it to a certain extent, but this season was, anytime you turned on the TV concerning college football, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Kyle Trask, Mac Jones, that's about it.
Right. And that's about it.
And most of it was Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields. And it's like, my goodness. And yes, I almost started, it hit me about 10 different times this season, but I'm always having these well-intended ideas, and then I'm just bogged down by everything I'm doing to carry it through. But I thought, I'm going to introduce a new player every day and say, does anybody know that this particular player, defensive end for Wake Forest, is a monster? And maybe start either a video or just a segment on here to say, just name the player's name and say, how many people in the chat know who this guy is? Because to your point, I just hate that we ignore 99.8% of the contributors to the sport.
Yes, Mark, I love that idea. I think it would be a wonderful addition to your channel. Even just periodically, just to break out a player and say, do you know who this guy is and what he's done for the last 3 years and how good he is? And this is where he plays, and check him out if you get a chance. Because we do need to educate college football fans, because I think there is this overbearing drone of the same 3-4 teams all the time. Like that's the only things that are going on in college football. And I think that plays into the whole, well, if you're not winning national championships, then these games don't count, and nobody really cares that you're playing.
Yeah. I made the parallel to the NBA only because I don't pay attention to the NBA, but my son used to. And he would tell me, and I noticed it. And of course, I worked at ESPN for 19 years, so I lived it. It was like they had to talk about LeBron James every day, even when there's nothing to talk about LeBron James. He didn't do anything, but we got to make something up. It's like, oh my word.
Now we've got the whole, it's been going on for last years, the whole GOAT debate. And so everything comes, every morning you turn on one of the talking head shows, and someone's always debating LeBron or Michael, Michael or LeBron, who's the GOAT. Yes. And it's like, man, how many times do you have to go over that same argument? It's the same thing every single day. And I can't stand that for college football. I think the sport deserves it better.
Yeah. You know what?
I think it's the best sport going.
Well, your overall topic piece finally brought to mind a conversation I had with, this is the head of digital media at ESPN. This was 2 to 3 years ago. Sat down with a guy because I noted to him, I said, you can go to some very major programs on the ESPN's college football page, Wisconsin, Virginia Tech, Michigan State, what I consider, they've got huge fan bases. They're on national TV almost every week. There's a few million people. I don't know how many people are consuming digital media on Michigan State football, but it's, and I said, if you go to the Michigan State subpage off of ESPN's main college football page, you are more likely to see an article on Ohio State than on Michigan State. Because it just kind of trickles down everything that they're talking about with Clemson, Ohio State, Texas. kind of trickles down to those conferences. So if you go to Northwestern, you see the Ohio State article. If you go to Indiana, you see the Ohio State article. And I said, these are large, successful programs. I'm not talking about Temple. I'm talking about Michigan State, right, Virginia Tech, and schools. And he said flat out to me, he said, the needle only moves on about 5 schools. So those are the 5 that he said. It's Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama, of course. And he says then, Texas, Oklahoma, USC, maybe a little Georgia, LSU. There you go. That's pretty much it. Michigan, Notre Dame. It stretches out to about 8 total, but we're kind of hyper focused on 3 or 4. It stretches out to about 8, and then it just goes off the cliff. Nobody else. We don't have. It just doesn't generate enough money, enough clicks to worry about.
Wow. Yeah. See, and I think that's a major contributor to probably have now. I think impacts recruiting. When you turn on 247, it's the same 4 teams that we're talking about all the time in recruiting. So that sends a message to kids. I think the NFL, even watching NFL games, I find it kind of interesting because there's certain schools where kids, let's say Terry McLaurin makes a play, they'll be sure to mention that he's from Ohio State. That's an Ohio State bucket, Ohio State receiver. And it's like, okay,
that's
the kid that caught the ball from Virginia Tech. You didn't mention where he went to school.
That's a good point right there. It would take somebody exhaustive research to go through NFL games and chart that, but I can guarantee you're right about that. Because the announcer who, even though he's got all the information he could ever want in front of him, rosters, and he's got an earpiece and they're telling him things, that's something that's lost on a lot of people out there that think that they know everything. These announcers and analysts know they have producers that will mention to them, he was a 3rd-round pick from Ohio State or whatever, in their ear, or this is his 5th consecutive game with a touchdown or whatever. That it's just more common knowledge that Ohio State, and fill in the blank with the other schools, had these players drafted. So that play-by-play announcer, it's just going to come out of his mouth that because he knows it, he'll say it. Terry McLaurin, Ohio State. But the receiver on the other side of the field, I got to look that one up, so I'm not going to. So that's going to get mentioned about 1/5 of the time that Terry McLaurin or Dwayne Haskins went to Ohio State. Yep. I guarantee that's the... I noticed that on the Red Zone. I watched a ton of the Red Zone on Sunday afternoon, and I noticed that with the guy that hosts that, who does a tremendous job. But when he's mentioning where a player went, it's J.K. Dobbins, a rookie out of Ohio State. That's what it is. He's never mentioning that somebody went to NC State or went to West Virginia.
Right. Yeah, I think in those things, as I get older, those things start to pop in my head more, and I start to notice, like even this week, the Eagles and Cardinals played. So the whole storyline was Jalen Hurts and Kyler Murray, 2 Oklahoma quarterbacks.
Yeah. Yep.
And they touched on that, and they touched on that, and they touched it, and they kept going over, and Lincoln Riley's name gets mentioned in interviews with Lincoln, and it's like, but that's sort of, and yeah, that's my school, and I love it, and it's great, but at the same time, it's like, but that's sort of promoting, that's almost like free advertising for Oklahoma on an NFL game. Not that people wouldn't know that those 2 are Oklahoma quarterbacks anyways, but then when people are constantly promoting it, it creates, I don't know, it just creates like another swirl of momentum for that thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Oklahoma's going to get a quarterback every year that's a prime quarterback because we promoted them as quarterback U, and teams are going to be DBU and wide receiver U and whoever. And if that's who we talk about, if that's what we promote, we create that narrative, I guess I'm sort of trying to say.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, and I sort of wish we didn't have so much of that, because I don't think we had that in 1977 where where networks and the NFL was pushing certain colleges and this, that, and the other. It didn't feel like it then, or maybe I just didn't notice it.
Yeah, and so it's the chicken and the egg scenario that I'll pick on Ohio State. They're an easy one. They get high TV ratings. Do they get high TV ratings because they win? And just if Ohio State dropped off, and I know it would take some time, but let's say Iowa started to win at Ohio State's level, and for 5 years Iowa went 11-1 every year or 12-0. Would in 5 years Iowa get the same ratings, television ratings, as Ohio State? I think there's got to be a mix there where some of it's because Ohio State's winning so much that people watch them, but also there is a brand name that's built over generations. And
Sure.
that's why Michigan still gets on TV and gets big ratings, even though they're losing 3 and 4 games a year. So yeah, it's I don't think it's good for the sport. I don't think it's interesting that 3 to 5 schools play in the playoffs constantly.
So, Mark, if I had to throw you we're going to pick a program that's next. That'll be the next program to step up and ascend. Which program do you think, or which couple of programs do you think have a chance to ascend, to crack that, not necessarily in the upper crust, but have a chance to win something of significance, I guess we should say.
Yeah,
I guess we shouldn't say.
So how many schools do you think are we breaking through? So like Georgia's not a candidate. They're too close to.
They're close enough to where they're a top 10 school. Somebody outside the top 10.
So now the top 10. So I can't even throw out Oregon. They're too close. They're there.
They're too close.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to go with North Carolina.
That's a good choice. They're a very interesting ball club.
Yeah, and of course,
very interesting ball club.
Got Sam Howell for 1 more year. And they're recruiting great. They're recruiting well. Yeah, they come to mind. Tennessee should be that, but they're nowhere close to that now. But they should be able to, if they got the right guy. Texas A&M is kind of an odd one because they're there this year, but they're usually not there. So this may be the first of them being part of the discussion on a regular basis.
Who do you think, which team in the Big Ten do you think will surprise next year? Who's the Indiana or Northwestern next year?
Next year's surprise team in the Big Ten, I think that I don't have a whole lot of faith in Mike Loxley, but I think that Maryland has a collection of talent that they could.
McDee's gonna like to hear that.
Yeah, I had him in mind when I came up with Maryland, but they have really good skill position players, and I think to his brother, from what I saw this year, they only played 5 games. I think they went 2 and 3. But the games that I saw, after the first game was a disaster, then they played pretty well after that. I thought Jeff Brown was going to do a better job at Purdue.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I wish Rondell Moore would have been more impactful for them.
Yeah,
because he was going to opt. Didn't he opt out and then he came back?
Yeah, that was just an odd situation where he opted out, and then he immediately, at the same time that Sean Wade and others said, "Hey, we're going to play, so we will play," and he did. He made his announcement at the same time, but suddenly he has this mystery there was never a diagnosed reported injury, but he's just on the sideline. And then he came back, played a couple games, then he was back out, then he was back in. Yeah, it was odd, but I never heard from anywhere, even on the Big Ten Network, if they're not reporting it, they never came up with an injury for him. So I didn't know what that was. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, Mark, that's all I had for you, man. I just wanted to get your thoughts on the 21 season. Hopefully, we'll have some more, not necessarily parity, but some stronger competition. Maybe shake things up. Maybe even be nice to see a couple different playoff teams, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it really would be. It would be nice.
Yeah, it'd be nice for the sport. I don't know if any of my Big 12 teams are going to be ready next year. Texas, of course, is always a candidate to be back, shall we say, but something tends to always go wrong there. I don't think Oklahoma State's quite ready to do it.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, man. Yeah. I appreciate the call.
Okay, Mark.
Have a good one.
Mark, Merry Christmas to you.
Thank you so much. Merry Christmas to you. Absolutely.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, good stuff. We've been on here for 2 hours. We've got Uncle Lou chiming in. He wants me to really forecast for the future here. Bowl picks for 2023. I think there's going to be a Rose Bowl. I think there's going to be an Orange Bowl. I think we'll have a Peach Bowl. I think I'm going to go with a Fiesta Bowl and a Cotton Bowl. We're going to get those in. So those are some of my bowl picks for 2023. Yeah, Derek, UNC. No, don't think Virginia Tech's going to be much of a contender. I have no faith in Justin Fuente. Their recruiting classes have been awful, terrible. Sorry, Derek, can't agree with you on that one. I like the pick, though. Cheryl, good call with Boston College. Jeff Hafley doing a heck of a job. Uncle Lou, yes, Texas. Great to have Uncle Lou here, of course. At the time that I'm about to drop off the map, just dropped to sleep, and we're dying a slow death here with 61 on the line. And, of course, I was 75 minutes late, so that doesn't help. But appreciate everybody here. Texas is back. Yeah, losing 5 games to Texas. The most underachieving program in college football over the last 5 years. 10 years. 10 years. Thought I saw some other good comments and questions in here. Preseason top 25 that makes sense for 2024. 2024. Who are the best freshman classes this year? They wouldn't even be freshman classes. It's only 2020. Best high school seniors that are being recruited right now. Yes, it actually makes sense, Lou. It's the top 25 that actually makes sense. Alabama football fan, Roll Tide. Thank you so much for the encouragement there. We always appreciate that. King Vegeta, get that right? King, we'll just call you King. What do you think about UCLA and Chip Kelly's future? I thought that they improved remarkably this year. Remarkably is a bit strong. Decidedly better. They actually looked like a football team this year. UCLA did. They did. I watched them play the USC game. I saw bits and pieces against a number of other teams. They were good. I know that they lost a bizarre game against Stanford. I DVR like 17 games on Saturday that I don't get to. But they played a very odd game against Stanford. They were down by 17, came back, took a 14-point lead. They had a 14-point lead with 3 minutes left, blew it, went to overtime. And I think Chip Kelly just wanted to get off the field and be done with the season because they went to overtime. The first overtime period, they scored a touchdown, could have kicked the extra point, kept the overtime going. Chip Kelly's like, go for 2. Let's get out of here. They called a very awful play for their 2-point conversion where the quarterback, it wasn't Dorian Thompson-Robinson. He must have gotten hurt. It was his backup, Griffin. Was like backpedaling, just whipped the ball in the end zone. Game's over. They lose. So a disappointing finish to the season, especially since they led USC 28-10. could have easily finished 5-2, but it finished 3-4. But they were much better. But they were so awful under Chip Kelly his 2 previous years. It's not saying much. They've gone from a top 80 team to a top 50, 55 team. How's that? Lou, thank you so much for the contribution. Appreciate that, man. You're the best. You know that. If Dan Mullen coached Kentucky, your head would explode. You put Dan Mullen with Kentucky, and you've got a powerhouse. You've got a dynasty for years to come. It just wouldn't be fair to the rest of the SEC. Georgia would just, Kirby Smart would crawl into a ball into the fetal position. We would have to find him somewhere in the football facility in a fetal position. It just would not be fair in any such way. Any such way. Which reminds me, if I ever get to this video, you're gonna find my picks, my preseason picks versus the actual results. I picked Kentucky to go 4-6. Voila, they went 4-6. I was right on the money with Kentucky. Just nailed it. Woo! It's right there. All right. Chip still has a job. Yes, he does. He did a fine job this year. All right. A lot of good questions there. We're going to pass those by again. Appreciate the super chat. I'm not talking well. I showed up 75 minutes late dealing with an issue here, and then we've been talking for over 2 hours. So here we go. But I do appreciate all the super chat contributions. We'll be back here tomorrow night. We have Ohio State live at 2, Florida State at 6. We'll see about a call-in show after that. But Ohio State at 2, Florida State at 6 on a Wednesday, where I've got a whole lot of work to do. No, I'm not going to swing the camera to show you my wrapping business over here, but a whole lot of work to do to get us set for New Year's Eve around this place. And then we'll be back at it after we celebrate Christmas, of course. Right here, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. See you tomorrow, 2 o'clock, Ohio State, 2 o'clock Eastern. Florida State, yeah, they still have a football program, 6 o'clock.